Hey there, so I thought I would take you on a quick tour of some of my daily-ish type practices that I have been using in my own art practice over the last, like 6 weeks or so, just to give you an idea of some small little things that you could do to bring some art into your life on a pretty daily basis, but not necessarily every single day. And I am doing this because in the Inspired Creative community, we're going to be jumping into a 40-day challenge where we're going to be making art regularly, and we're going to have a kickoff session, and then we will have inside the community some chatting about our projects and sharing of photos and encouraging each other. And then at the end of our 40 days, we're also going to get together and have another chat about what we learned. We can do a little show and tell and talk about what happened for us over the 40 days. Some of us will feel like we accomplished so much, and some of us will feel like we stagnated a bit, but there will always be something to learn about yourself or your artwork. It's a great way to move yourself forward creatively, whether you actually make 40 pieces of artwork or not. And we're going to talk about that too. You don't necessarily have to make 40 pieces of artwork. It's a 40-day challenge to be engaged with your artwork. And there are different ways to approach that. So we'll talk about that in our kickoff session. So I just wanted to take you through some of the things I've been doing because they're very easy and very approachable. And I know it can feel overwhelming to say I'm going to be making art for 40 days, but it really doesn't have to be a huge thing. So these are just some little practices I'm going to take you through, and I'll talk you through what I've been doing and just my own feelings about them, and just give you a little chance to see some of the stuff that's been going on in my studio. So these are some paintings, kind of a project I started for myself as a daily-ish kind of exercise. And it went quickly from, these are oil pastels and a smaller size, I think this must be like a 5x7, to a larger size in tempera paint sticks, because while I was enjoying working with the oil pastels, they don't layer quite the same way and they kind of never dry. So I wanted something that worked a little bit faster and that had better layering capabilities. And then so this is when I switched to 8.5 by 11. This is just cardstock paper, which is why it's curling a little bit, but these are just fun little sketches that I've been doing frequently, not every single day, but often, quite a few days during the month. And you can kind of see how my objectives changed a little bit from here to there. I love the multicolor and the full page. And I wanted to play a little bit with some color themes. I have a lot of pinks in this one. You can see a little bit of gold shining there. And then I started to restrict myself in some ways just to see what would happen. So I pre-chose a color palette for this one and tried to stay to that instead of just using everything that was in the mix. And this one I let myself just play again with, I really do like the back and forth between the warm and the cool colors. In this one, I was trying to force myself to stay in this blue color scheme and do something different, not quite so, I guess, like quote unquote maximal as those other ones. And here I have another pre-chosen color scheme with some golds, and I tried to stay in the very warm hues this time. And with the greens and yellows here, at the last minute I couldn't stand it. I had to put some pink in there. And then here is where I got a different kind of tempera paint stick. It's a different brand and it's not quite as opaque. So there are reasons to like it, and then also reasons I don't love it as much, because I really do like the opacity of the other one and how rich it looks when I'm layering over. So but I can't buy the brand that I really like in single colors, and my goal is to use up all of my tempera paint sticks and then be done with them for now. I just want to fully use what I have and then kind of like dismiss them from the studio for the time being. Here I have the warm scheme again, playing with a little bit of the neon type colors and trying to move away from my standard shapes. And you can see how every day changes. They don't all look the same. I'm playing with different kinds of shapes, different proportions of shapes, allowing some of the original squiggle that I do to stay showing, and then also playing with taking it away so that you don't really see almost any of it. This one I chose just random colors. I didn't pre-choose anything and just forced myself to use them as they came out of, I closed my eyes and grabbed them out of my container. And this is the last or most recent one I've done. This was also just mostly random choosing, but then I also allowed myself to go in at the last minute and choose some colors that I really wanted to use. And so that's just a quick example of something you could choose for a daily project. These really don't take me long. I mean, on the short side, they can take, maybe like 7 or 8 minutes. And then on the long side, depending on what I really get into and how many layers I'm doing, I suppose I could spend maybe 20 minutes, but definitely not more than that. So it's a great, I just call them tempera paint stick sketches. It's a great way to play with color and really be loose and free, because they're really a kid's tool. That's how they're advertised, and how the marketing for them is that it's a children's art tool. This is, I used Shuttle Art. That was the first brand I ever used. That's what I really like. I do have these quick sticks. I don't find the quick sticks to be as opaque, which is what I really like. So if you want my recommendation, I say go with Shuttle Art. But there's a quick example for you. Another quick example. These were not quite as fast to make, but I did make some, some collages. These took a lot more time, and I would say I spent time working on them each day, so it was a bit of a daily practice, but there was a lot more time involved with each one. So while I was doing the artwork every day, it wasn't that I would complete each one in just one sitting. I would pull out the pieces and play with them a little bit, kind of puzzle it out and see what I thought, and then set it aside. And sometimes I'd be working on more than one at a time. This is another one. I've got the afternoon light coming into my table right now. But I love how these just come together piece by piece. I have all these ladies here. Just a fun way to spend some time on some artwork. And then this is another one. This is where, so I only did 3 collages during that time. It was about a 5-day period that I did 3 collages. But even as I was finishing up these first 2, I told myself I was going to give myself a time limit. So the first 3 things I came across that I found intriguing for one reason or another, I cut those out and I put them together, and I had them together without any embellishment, and then it just looked so stark to me, and I decided that I would fill in with all of this mark making after the fact, and I really like that. So that's kind of an example of how you can start with one thing and then it can expand into something else over time. And here I have this little notebook that I've been working on for, not steadily, I've had this for over a year, and I've been doing different things. But most recently I decided I was going to draw some kind of container each day, just because I think that having this sort of like subconscious almost like glossary of different kinds of containers operating inside me in my consciousness will help me come up with interesting compositions while I'm painting. So I decided I would either recreate or draw something from my real life, or I would just draw something from my imagination and let it go wherever it happens to go and just have fun with it. These drawings often took me less than 5 minutes, but sometimes a little more depending on how I felt that day and what I was kind of looking for to get out from the art. Some of them I like, some of them I don't. Some of them I feel just very medium about. This would be one of the ones that I don't like. And I do like this one, which is funny because it's just a fingernail polish bottle. And then, you know, some things I like about each page and other things I don't. This one here is actually one of my favorites, even though it's kind of wonky and unbalanced. Some of these felt very lonely and empty until I put in some background, so that's why I filled in some of the blank space. This one, you know, is actually from real life, and this is a very ornate sort of carved mirror, and this is a votive candle, and this is the wood shelving underneath it. So I know that, but it doesn't really look like that to the viewer, and I've sort of played with, you know, should I fill in some detailing here or not, or should I just leave it? So far I've just left it. This is kind of a combination. This is not from real life, but they are sort of a rendition of something that I saw online, and then I sort of created this space around it, and I like that almost like vignette sort of style, even though that's not what I was originally going for when I started this daily-ish project. And then this same thing, this is something I found on Pinterest, and then I just embellished around it. Same with this one, kind of playing with some of the different types of shading. None of this does not make sense for it to be on this kind of, like, it almost like it's sitting on top of water, but not really. These, again, I found on Pinterest, and I popped the little plant in there. This was something from real life, except for the background. This was entirely from my imagination. This was some from real life, some from my imagination. Not one of my favorites, which I think I'm just going to leave it alone. I don't really care if I love it or not. Same with this. I can see adding color to this later and really having fun with that. Same with this one. This one I don't like at all, but it's okay. I'm letting it exist. Many of these I'm just kind of underwhelmed with, but I still enjoyed having the time to make them and being involved in the process. This I did with my non-dominant hand, and I really do love the imperfection and wonkiness that happens when I'm not using my dominant hand. So I started to use that a little bit more. And here I think this is horribly ugly, but it's also kind of playful, and I can appreciate that about it. This one feels a little too controlled, even though I think I was using my non-dominant hand for the outer outline, and then I used my dominant hand for some of the detailing. This one, very ho-hum. This one kind of bizarre. I actually wanted to just kind of like annotate the fact that whales had been present, like the word whale, and then seeing representations of whales in my life had happened like 4 or 5 times over a period of 3 days, and that felt significant. So I felt like I needed to look up, you know, what do whales represent to see what that was all about. And then here I kind of was starting to get a little bit fizzle a little bit, I guess, on the whole container idea and trying to make up like things that look like pottery. And so I just decided I would use my non-dominant hand and do a contour drawing of my soap jar or soap dispenser, and then going back to the little jar that I did in the past, I decided to do another one and really just started having fun with that. So those are just some of the daily practices I have put to work over the last month. Just some ideas maybe to help get some creative juices flowing.